All right, everyone. Today we're going to talk about something serious, cocaine addiction. We'll try to understand it from an addiction medicine specialist point of view, almost like we're the ones treating someone like Jax Taylor. For those who might not be familiar, Jax Taylor is from Vanderpump Rules, a reality TV guy with lots of drama, and he's been pretty open about his struggles with cocaine. But it's important to remember that we're not here to gossip about Jax. In fact, as a new fan of his, I really appreciate him for sharing his struggles so publicly. Whether he was forced to or not, I wish him well, and I am eager to hear how he is doing. I'm using his story as a way to help you better understand cocaine addiction, the science, the challenges, and what recovery might look like. So before we get into Jax and his story, let's start with the basics. What exactly is cocaine? What does it do to your brain? Cocaine is a powerful stimulant that triggers a huge release of dopamine in your brain. Dopamine is kind of like your brain's reward signal. You get a little surge of it every time you achieve something, eat something delicious, or connect with someone you care about. You also get a surge of it when you are anticipating something delightful. It's basically the feel-good chemical, and your survival as a species depends on it. Unfortunately, there are substances that can kidnap the dopamine pathways in your brain and control the release of dopamine. Cocaine is one of those substances. Cocaine throws things way off balance. It floods your brain with dopamine, creating an intense euphoria where you get all this energy. It's like hitting the jackpot at a slot machine, but on a constant loop. It's like winning an Olympic gold medal when you were just a couch potato. And what happens over time? Well, think of it this way. Your brain isn't designed for this non-stop dopamine overload. Imagine trying to listen to your favorite song, but the volume keeps getting cranked up louder and louder until the sound becomes distorted and overwhelming. It's kind of like that with cocaine. Your brain tries to adjust to that constant flood of dopamine by reducing the number of dopamine receptors it has, basically turning down the volume knobs. So you end up needing more and more cocaine to get that same high. But all other sounds in your life that you used to love hearing become muted. And that's where the addiction really takes over. Your brain starts craving that dopamine rush, even if it's not really pleasurable anymore. And when you stop using cocaine, you experience this horrible crash because your brain's natural dopamine production has been totally suppressed. So it's not just a matter of willpower. There's an actual physical dependence. And it goes even deeper than that. We're learning now that genetics plays a huge role in addiction. Variations in certain genes, especially those related to dopamine receptors, can make some individuals more vulnerable to cocaine's addictive effects. To be brief, variations in the DRD2 gene responsible for making the D2 receptor are linked to a higher chance of cocaine addiction. In my blog post, I go into more details about this. Please use the link in the video description to learn more. Now, I find genetic variations fascinating and kind of scary if you think about it. So it's not just about making bad choices. There's a biological predisposition at play here. This is why it's so important to understand that addiction is a complex disease, not a moral failing. So how does all of this relate back to Jax Taylor? Well, I think knowing that genes also play a role makes it super important to be thorough during the evaluation and planning of the treatment process. A public struggle like his highlights how addiction can really affect anyone, but should also remind us that we are all genetically different. It doesn't matter how famous or wealthy you are. In fact, the pressure of fame, the constant scrutiny, the easy access to drugs, all of it can actually increase the risk of addiction. When I've taken care of celebrities or executives, I realize that they are under constant pressure to keep up a public persona. That mask often collapses as soon as they are in private, creating a painful double life that most other patients with addiction never have to manage. Their status, wealth, means access to any drug they want with people who are doing the same thing. And that brings us to another really important point, recognizing the signs and symptoms of cocaine addiction. The sooner you recognize those warning signs, the sooner you can reach out for help. Some of the behavioral changes you might notice are increased energy and restlessness, followed by extreme fatigue and irritability. Someone struggling with cocaine addiction might also have trouble sleeping, talk really fast, or lose interest in things they used to enjoy. It's basically like a roller coaster of energy and moods. There are physical signs too. Things like dilated pupils, a runny nose, or frequent nosebleeds. Weight loss is common, and heart problems like a racing heart or high blood pressure can be serious issues too. Our bodies are trying to tell us something's wrong. They're smarter than we give them credit for sometimes. Recognizing these signs early on is crucial for getting help before things get even worse. But how would you approach someone if you're worried about them? Those conversations can be so tough to have. The key is to come from a place of caring, not judgment. Just share your concerns based on what you've noticed and let them know you're there for them. Shame and stigma already make it so hard to seek help. So let's bring it back to Jax Taylor. How would I approach his recovery, knowing his celebrity status and everything? We'd have to consider those unique challenges. Privacy would be a huge concern. We'd need a treatment facility that could offer discretion and anonymity. And we'd also need to address the pressures of fame, the media attention, and how he can manage a demanding career while in recovery. Now, already his privacy has been invaded and his information is all out there. This is another problem for celebrities. It's like he needs a recovery plan that's as custom tailored as his red carpet outfits. Just like a stylist considers someone's personal style, we need to consider Jax's individual needs and the specific challenges he faces as a celebrity. So what would this celebrity-tailored treatment plan look like? Well, I don't know Jax. I don't know anyone treating him, and I am not part of his treatment team. So I will discuss what I've done for other celebrities in similar situations. The foundation's still the same. I start with the Socrates assessment, thorough family and medical histories, and advanced lab work, including genetic testing and over 500 biomarkers. Then we spend 2 to 3 hours discussing the results and creating a personalized treatment plan that addresses their unique challenges. Detox at a private facility somewhere far away from the paparazzi can be an option. However, for cocaine, detox can be done at home. Therapy could involve individual sessions to help the person process their experiences and build coping mechanisms, and maybe even group therapy with others who understand the addiction process. And for preventing relapse, especially with a celebrity lifestyle, we would create a plan that addresses high-risk situations. That might mean identifying triggers, setting boundaries with people who are still using, and building a strong sober support network. So it's not just about stopping the drug use. It's about creating a whole new, healthier lifestyle. It's about empowering people to make healthy choices, even in challenging environments. And it's important to remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination. There will be bumps along the way, but lasting recovery is definitely possible with the right plan in place. My blog has more details about treatment options. However, I want to make a special mention about an interesting class of drugs called the glucagon-like peptide-1 receptor agonists, or GLP-1 for short. While they are not FDA approved to treat cocaine addiction, I believe they could really change how we treat it. Animal research is very promising, and what I've seen in my own practice has been really exciting. But how would these drugs work for someone like Jax? Hypothetically, remember how we talked about cocaine basically hijacking the brain's reward system by flooding it with dopamine? Well, GLP-1 drugs seem to affect how dopamine is released in a way that could reduce those intense cravings. They could almost rewire the brain to make cocaine less appealing, like resetting the brain's reward system to make recovery actually attainable. While the anecdotal cases are promising, we definitely need more studies with humans to confirm these findings and understand the long-term effects. It's amazing how much we're still learning about the brain and how it's all impacted by addiction. This is why I like sharing what I've encountered. But before we wrap up, I have a thought-provoking question for you listeners out there. Imagine you could take a genetic test and it revealed that you had a predisposition to addiction. How would that knowledge change your behavior? Would you be more careful about trying drugs or alcohol? Would you see people battling addiction differently? It's a powerful question. It really makes you think about how much control we have, how our genes might influence our choices, and how we see other people. On one hand, that kind of knowledge could be really empowering. You could make more informed decisions about your behavior. But on the other hand, it raises ethical concerns about potential stigma and discrimination. We don't want to live in a world where people are judged or denied opportunities based on their genes. And we have to remember that genetics is just one piece of the puzzle. Environment, personal choices, access to support, all of those things play a role. It's not a predetermined fate. This has been such an incredible journey, learning about the science, the treatments, the challenges, and the hope that surrounds cocaine addiction. But before we go, I want to bring it back to the human element. These aren't just statistics or case studies. These are real people, like Jax Taylor. That's so important to remember. Addiction affects real people, and everyone's journey is different. Jax's story, as public as it's been, reminds us that addiction can happen to anyone, and recovery is always possible. So what are some key takeaways, especially for those who might be worried about themselves or someone they care about? First, remember those warning signs we talked about. Any noticeable changes in behavior, mood, or physical health could be red flags. And don't be afraid to reach out for help. There are so many resources available: hotlines, support groups, treatment centers. Seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness. And we need to keep talking about addiction openly to break down that shame and stigma surrounding it. The more we can normalize these conversations, the more comfortable people will feel seeking support. You know, we started by focusing on Jax Taylor and his very public struggle, using his story as a way to explore cocaine addiction. And I think it's important to circle back to that, to the human element of it all. We've talked a lot about the science and the treatments, but at the end of the day, this is about people's lives. It's easy to get caught up in the gossip, the technical details, but we can't forget that addiction affects real people. People with families and dreams and their own unique challenges. People like Jax, who despite his struggles, is still out there living his life and trying to recover from drugs, all while in the public eye. And his story, whether you're a fan of his or not, reminds us that addiction really doesn't discriminate. It can touch anyone's life. It's a powerful reminder to approach this issue with understanding instead of judgment. We've covered so much ground today: the science, the treatments, the challenges, the hope, and the incredible resilience of the human spirit. I really hope you're walking away with a better understanding of cocaine addiction and maybe even a renewed sense of hope. I only touched the surface because I didn't want this topic to be too complicated. So, to everyone listening, whether you're personally affected by addiction or just curious about this incredibly complex issue, thank you for joining me today.